Welcome back, BrookLAN. I'm Tyson Hughes here with Joshua Lorsi, and we're back at it for round two here of our MSS today. And I'm honestly super excited because after that round one, going to a game three, I hope all of our games today go to a game three, honestly. I love watching Pokemon, right? And having the opportunity to commentate here today is always a blast. And we have another electric matchup between two players here for round two. One of them being Arbin, who just came off of a top four in Charlotte. I'm super excited to see how they play today. They're actually not rocking the Blood Moon team. We have a Gouging Fire mirror. And that's why I say electric, because I feel like Gouging Fire wasn't really respected. You actually could talk more about it. You did run it in Charlotte if you do want to talk about that.
I don't want to talk about the run, but I'll talk about the Pokemon if that's fair. So gouging, very interesting, very, I would say, I'm not sure how I feel about it.
Interesting, and not how I feel about it, right? That is an accurate way to describe Gouging Fire, I think.
It's really good. It's really good into matchups that it's supposed to be good in. But the bad matchups is what makes me so scared to use the Pokemon, right? You don't want to see lando-i. You don't want to see a lot of things that just kind of hit gouging fire for super effective damage. The more normal set of gouging is the speed boosting, because you just want to outpace everything on the field and able to go for howls and be able to click those breaking swipes and be just kind of faster than your opponent and kind of have some damage mitigation and also boost your partners as well, right? Heat Crash is it's just a weird move to me where it could hit Mons for very hard damage, or it could be like a 40 base power move into Ursaluna. So it's like a hit or miss. So I just don't know how I feel about the Pokemon, but it's definitely a group of Pokemon that are built around Gouging Fire that have done well at events at Charlotte. And there was like, I believe, like 7 or 8 Gouging Fires in day 2, which is really good for the Pokemon, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's bad at all. I think that you just need to run it correctly.
Yeah.
It needs to be partnered well. If it's not partnered well, it kind of just fumbles. But I think that this mirror should be interesting. Different terrors on the gougings, which might play a part in the matchup. But
For sure.
I do think that gouging fire, I think it's here to stay.
Yeah.
I think it's here to stay in the matchup.
I agree as well, right? I mean, Luca, if you're watching this, right, you might be the best Gouging Fire player out there, but I think a lot of people are picking up after that result as well. I think in the mirror as well, more so than the Terrace, to be honest, the option that both of these players have on their team is how you support the Gouging Fire, right? Is you can go the all physical route, like kind of Arbin is kind of doing, right? Where your only special attacker is the Flutter Mane, and you have things like King Gambit, Iron Hands to really take advantage of the Gouging Fire, and things like Chanpao to just offset the damage to a level that's unseen of with the howls and the sort of ruin and the terras and things that just boost your damage and things like that, where Brian's approach is more of the landorus-i and Golden Go, where you have two different modes, so you're not as reliant on the howl set as you have things in Tornadus with the Rocky Helmet and Golden Go, where you're able to Tailwind and make it rain. And that's another Pokemon I want to talk about as well, is Golden Go, where I think it actually has a decent matchup into a lot of the meta right now. I think maybe not into the Gouging Fire stuff. I mean, Shadow Balls will hurt it still, but you don't really get to click your broken move in of Make It Rain, which is primarily what you want to be using it for. But I think Golden Go, like, overall into the meta has a decent amount of possibilities out there that it could be used for, as we do see both of our players here hop into our game one.
Interesting enough, the gouging set on Brian's end is going to be very different than Arbin's, right? We see how Breaking Swipe and Flare Blitz. So just to keep note that Brian is definitely running a more physical advantage in the gouging set, being able to click Flare Blitz, and that base power on Flare Blitz kind of just hits everything for that power. So we'll just see how both these trainers decide to go with a lead. I have Chenpao, King Gambit on the end of Arbin's side, and Gouging and Ogerpon on the end of Brian.
Yeah, and these I feel like are two very normal leads, right? Especially the Water Pond and the Gouging Fire, just very normal, right? You can just howl, click Ivy Cudgel, you follow me Breaking Swipe. I mean, not in front of a King Gambit, obviously, but it's actually kind of scary for Arbin, right? Is because you feel almost forced to trialize your King Gambit, which is that Dragon type. I mean, of course, you go for Protect as well, but I think Gouging with Flare Blitz in particular does a great job of pinning this King Gambit, where next to Chanpao, which we do see Arbin decide to switch out, is you're threatening a lot of damage into this King Gambit, and even if you're dropping the King Gambit by -1, if it does decide to terrestrialize or something like that, it's doing super effective damage, which is a little scary. So I think if Brian does get howls off, you are able to balance those back and forth. As we see a terrestrialization here, I would assume that to be the Dragon maybe into the King Gambit here. Doesn't want to eat a blitz, and you really want to try to find a way to weave in a Swords Dance. I think that's what Arbin's game plan is.
So yes, I like this Terra on Arbin's end, but it could also backfire, right? If you're able to click how, maybe even once, to be honest, breaking swipes is still going to do a lot of damage into this King Gambit. King Gambit is also known for its decent bulk, but at the same time, you don't want to be taking like maybe a +1 or +2 breaking swipes. And we're going to just see a Kowtow cleave into the Ogerpon slot. You're going to see the Ogerpon, obviously, spiky shield there. King Gambit's going to take a little bit of damage due to the spiky shield, but I think that this is a wonderful turn one by Brian, right? Got that howl up. Now you could start clicking the breaking swipe. You can also tear on your end to kind of lose that dragon typing, but you kind of don't need to, too. If you're dropping the attack stat of the opposing gouging and able to kind of click moves with your Ogerpon, I don't think Terra's more so needed. I think I would just take the trade of just having breaking swipes hits perfected damage. Also, we don't know the speed interactions between these gougings as well. So I think the important thing in this turn is seeing who's actually going first with breaking swipe, because they might have just complete control of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I do like the Terra here. I do think if you are going to Terastallize, though, is don't go for a breaking swipe yet, because you're most likely not going to pick up the King Gambit there. I think going for another Howl, maybe it's a little greedy, but yeah, I think another Howl might have been a little bit safer with something like a Follow Me, but this breaking swipe also is fine as well. The fact that, again, you're able to play out those speeds and figure it out. I mean, you do that with Howl as well, but breaking swipe is going to go off here. But like the scary thing is I wish you're giving this King Gambit boosts, which is always going to be scary, I think. And Ivy Cudgel is going to fire off here. I don't know if that's going to... Yeah, that's all, like, if you howled, I think... Oh, but it goes into Ogerpon anyway, so you get... Oh, it lived? Wait, okay.
So this is really
I was
good.
not expecting it to live.
So this is really good for Brian. If Brian could somehow double protect and maybe scout out for a protect on the end of Arbin, right? You're able to pick up the knockout with breaking swipes the following turn. But we're going to just see maybe Brian just straight up just go for the offense. Because the thing about gouging mirrors is, like, you don't want to double protect into a howl. You know what I mean? You don't want to do that. So I understand Brian's thought process here. But we're going to just see the King Gambit protect, kind of scout out and see what Brian wants to go for here. And gouging's just going to click breaking.
Yeah, and this is most likely going to confirm that Brian's gouging fire is going to be faster since this is the second time in a row now, where that breaking swipe is going to go off, lowering that gouging fire there on Arbin's side to -2, and breaking swipe not even able to pick up the Ogerpon there. I think Arbin's protect there from King Gambit made a lot of sense, right? You want to get rid of the Ogerpon so you don't have to play the Follow Me mind games, because your King Gambit is at boosted attack, and I'm not sure if that critical hit mattered. You were at +1, right? Or actually, excuse me, with the breaking swipes, maybe the crit mattered.
Yeah, so... That's what makes Ogerpon good, right? It's able to punish this whole breaking swipes game plan. Being able to crit. Ogerpon living on the end of Brian is super huge now, because now you have a really simple play of just clicking, just breaking swipes and Follow Me. Just to avoid that sucker punch, because that King Gambit is actually a threat right now, right? And the only way it could get off some damage right now, I believe, is through sucker punch. It might actually be able to live a breaking swipes, depending on how these... trainers train their Pokemon, obviously. But I think the big thing that we need to take from this game one so far is the fact that Brian's gouging fire is faster. So having that faster breaking swipes, being able to lower the attack stat of the opposing gouging and also any other physical attacker first is actually pretty huge in the mirror, in my opinion. But we're just going to see a sucker punch here. Not going to do too much damage at all.
Yeah, and the breaking swipes that Arbin was able to fire off, allowing that King Gambit to live another turn and be able to get another Defiant boost. That's super, super scary, I think, there. And Hornleech getting the KO on the Ogerpon. So Arbin's like, okay, your gouging fire is faster than mine, but my Ogerpon's faster than yours. So being able to get that KO there, now there's no more mind games. Now there's no more Follow Me mind games, and this King Gambit is setting at a scary amount of attack, and you're able to threaten sucker punches into a lot of things here on Brian's side of the field. Maybe even being able to pick up a KO on the gouging fire next turn if it doesn't go for a protect. And I think what's also interesting is that this gouging fire is opting for protect instead of burning bulwark, so you are able to, I wouldn't say freely, but being able to go for Kowtow in a slot without being worried of getting burned is reassuring, I think, to say the least.
Yes, I do kind of like protect on gouging, because, like, I get the whole burning bull mark. You want to get the burns on a lot of these physical attacking Pokemon, but one thing that we got to, that this metagame, it's Urshifu, it's Ogerpon, for the most part, that are the main physical attackers, and Incineroar, right? Incineroar is not going to get burned because of the fact of its fire typing. Urshifu if
Goes to protect.
goes to protect, and Ogerpon Ivy Cudgel
Doesn't
is
even
not
make contact.
So I do like the protect on the end of Brian, but still a very interesting interaction that these next two turns are going to have, because at the same time you did click breaking swipes into King Gambit. Yes, you get the -1 attack, but at the same time you're giving him that Defiant boost. But we're just going to see the Gouging Fire just switch into the Tornadus here, and let's see what the trainers decide to do. Urshifu just goes for Sucker Punch. What a good play. That's
Yeah.
really, really smart, because you know that on Arbin's end, you kind of want the Ogerpon here kind of wants to attack, because like Follow Me Sucker Punch is just kind of like a very slow play. Like you need to get as much damage as you can. As much as possible. So I really do like that play on the end of Brian. And having Tornadus here with Tailwind is going to be really, really clutch in this endgame.
Yeah, I really like that play from Brian there, realizing that Arbin most likely was going to go for something like a Sucker Punch plus an Ivy Cudgel to try to get a knockout on the Urshifu, knowing it has that sash, being able to double that. But Brian calling out that game plan out, I think, and going for a Sucker Punch into the King Gambit, not risking it, right? Understanding that if it does follow me, then you at least have sash and you're able to preserve it. And if Sucker Punch does fail, then the King Gambit Sucker Punch fails. Even if it went for a Kowtow or something, right? You're forcing Arbin to make that play kind of in their head. Tornadus going for protect here, not going for a Tailwind, not being too hasty about their game plan yet. Sacred Sword going off for the Urshifu. I'm not too sure about that. I think Tailwind, you needed to click at that turn. Maybe they were hoping that they can get in gouging here, but the scary thing is, right, is I'm unsure if you're going to be in range of a Sucker Punch from this Chen Pao. If it is adamant, I think you do threaten maybe a KO. And gouging, it might live on like 10 depending on how it's EV'd, but it seemed relatively fast, so I'm unsure how bulky it is. I also have like 0 games of gouging fire. I have no idea how bulky this thing is going to be.
So gouging has some good stat distribution. It's pretty bulky, but at the same time, like it can't like take all the hits, especially Terra Fire gouging, right, in front of an Ogerpon. It's just gonna do a lot of damage. What I think Brian, I don't want to say like failed to realize, but like Tailwind is like an easy play, right? It just makes your Urshifu faster, and you could just click close combat into the Ogerpon. I believe it should have been at Rage to be knockout with Chen Pao on the field. I think that's a risk that I'm willing to take, because the idea is you get Tailwind up, and then if you do lose your Urshifu, your gouging comes in. Now your gouging is faster than Chen Pao, right? And it's able to click the breaking swipe. So we're just going to see a Flare Blitz, though.
And we don't see a Sucker Punch very notably as well, which I think is super big. So if you get something like a burn here on the Flare Blitz, you are still in this game. Gouging Fire is going to be able to hang on from that recoil. Icicle Crash coming out and missing the Tornadus there. And Brian able, oh my god. And the Ivy Cudgel is going to go off into the Gouging Fire, knocking it out. But that's super big for Brian now.
Super big for Brian, and that's one of the painful things about running Chen Pao with Icicle Crash. This is why when I ran gouging Chen Pao, I ran Ice Spinner, because at the same time, you need Spinner, because you need Spinner to kind of deal with those kind of side spam teams, and you're like kind of boosting yourself, right? So you could get that Icicle Crash damage just by just clicking Howl. Icicle Crash damage and even more than that, because of just having Howl on your team, and yeah, we're gonna just see that miss play a big part, but I don't. Is it over?
I mean, a critical hit from the Ivy Cudgel here could play a part. Something like if you get a miss, obviously there's always misses, right? We saw the Icicle Crash miss. Bleak Windstorm is more likely to miss, to be honest. So Sucker Punch is going to fire off here into the Tornadus. Tornadus hangs on. Bleak Wind needs the hit here. I'm holding my breath. But I think for Brian's end is you had a lot more of a... Bleak Wind does hit, taking game 1 there for Brian. But I do want to talk about that game is because, like you were saying, I think when Tornadus protected that turn, I think going for Tailwind and attack, actually maybe not even into the Ogerpon, into the Chen Pao, right? Being able to break its sash, and then you threaten a lot more damage with the Gouging Fire. So when it comes in and you force a Sucker Punch, because there, it was very safe for Arbin to just go for Protect or go for an Icicle Crash, like unfortunately it missed. But it was a very, very safe, I think, from Arbin to go for that play because of the Protect, and Brian kind of provided Arbin that game, that end game.
Yeah, I think either or it could be objectively correct. I just think that if you fixate the damage on close combat onto the Ogerpon, I'm not sure on the damage range, but I think Ogerpon had somewhat of some chip. Now, if you get rid of the Ogerpon, it becomes like a 3v1 situation, depending on what moves he decides to click. If he decides to click Icicle Crash into Torn, does have a chance to knock out. We don't know how this Tornadus is trained. That's 1. 2, I think that The only like misplay that I saw on Brian's end, to be honest, was just that turn. Like you said, we both pointed out, you don't need to click protect in that sense. You kind of just want to get that speed interaction where your Urshifu's going first that turn, because you know it's going to go down within the next turn or two. So might as well just get as much use as you can out of that Urshifu just by kicking that tailwind, and just getting rid of maybe Ogrepon or bringing the Chen Pao down to Sash, like you said.
Exactly, and I mean the Chen Pao isn't as incentivized to even click and attack that turn into it anyways, because it does have to click things like Icicle Crash into the Tornadus. And as we saw, yes, you don't make contact, and with Rocky Helmet on Tornadus, that could be annoying going into this matchup, and it definitely can add up, and breaking your Sash is definitely scary, but you can miss,
Yes.
and that's the scary thing, and I think Arbin is definitely regretting maybe not bringing Spinner into this tournament now. I mean, of course, there are adaptations for Game 2, and I think if you play around the Gouging Fire, now that you know the speed tiers, you know your Ogrepon's faster most likely, and you know Brian's Gouging Fire is faster than yours, you can play around that now if you're Arbin. And Arbin, again, coming off of a top 4, definitely has the skill set to be able to lock in for
Playing
Game
for
2
years.
and
I think
play
he
around.
definitely has it. But we're going to just see a King Gambit Gouging Fire lead on the end of Arbin and
Oh,
Torn and Landers, and you see on
That's really
Brian's
scary.
face, he's excited to see
Yeah.
this. And this is what I was talking about earlier. As a Gouging Fire player, I can say this is the most terrifying duo that you could see, because you could click Rain Dance and Sandstream Storm and force a Terra out on the end of Arbin's end, which
Yeah.
is terrifying to be in.
Yeah, and there's really no counterplay here for this, unfortunately, for Arbin. Like, you do have things like the Breaking Swipe, but again, you're taking damage from that Tornadus because it is a contact move. That Breaking Swipe is actually going to be making contact with it, and, you know, Rocky Helmet, in addition to the Bleakwind Storms and the Sandseer Storms, you're going to be doing so much damage there. This play that Brian's thinking about in their head as well also makes a lot of sense. You're trying to preserve your Landorus. You don't want to get too hasty, right? You have the opportunity to play safe, where you can just protect, Rain Dance, then Tailwind, then Bleakwind Storm. Like, you have the opportunity, and you know how your Tornadus is built if you're Brian, where you can play very safely here. And we do see just, again, you're baiting out Protect there from Arbin's, and there's no need to get hasty with your Sandseer Storm. You have the lead advantage. You don't have to jump the gun too hastily here. I mean, Arbin obviously has the chance to maybe go for a Swords Dance or something like that, but that's it's such a scary play. Like, both these players, I think, have a lot of opportunities. But Kowtow just going in for the Landorus there, and this is looking super good for Brian now.
Very well piloted by Byron that turn, realizing that Arbin needs to kind of get some damage onto this Landorus here, and protecting Lando and going for Rain Dance is by far the best play possible that you could have done that turn. Now you get this immediate speed interaction with Tailwind and being faster than the Gouging Fire and going for a Life Orb Sandstream Storm into his team. So let's see how well Gouging can take this. I'm pretty sure.
Do you think Gouging takes this?
Nah. There's no chance, in my opinion, but we'll see.
Sucker Punch isn't even a 2-hit KO there, right? So you need Burning. Oh, and it doesn't live, unfortunately, there for the Burning Bulwark there on Arbin's end. It is going to be knocked out by that Sandseer Storm. That's a little unfortunate. I think if you do live that turn, you can fire for Breaking Swipe and threaten that Landorus now with a 2-hit KO on that Sucker Punch. But it looks like it's just out of range of a Sucker Punch there. With Chen Pao on the field, right, Sucker Punch should be able to pick up on the Landorus here, but this is still a very, very scary position. You have things like the Bleakwind Storm, of course. You don't want to give the King Gambit a drop there. It could get a little out of hand. But the fact that the rain's up and you're able to guarantee that you're hitting both in the first place, depending on what Brian has in the back, this is looking very scary for Arbin. Arbin, I don't want to discount yet either, though, because Arbin definitely has things like the Chen Pao, as long as you're preserving your Sash. And, you know, God forbid you actually do hit your Icicle Crash this time. The Landorus isn't, or excuse me, the Tornadus isn't looking to safe if you're able to hit an Icicle Crash this turn.
We're going to just see a Protect on the King Gambits and kind of maybe scout out and see what these trainers decide to do with the Pokemon. But the only thing that's good about this scenario, this board scenario, is the fact that you can't miss because of Rain Dance. So this is going to be a knockout on the end of Brian for to get rid of this Chen Pao here. So I don't know. I think that like this board was pretty good for Arbin, although it looked bad, right? It was pretty good in the sense that you have this double Sucker Punch pressure, right?
Yeah, so I think that turn Arbin needed to Sucker Punch the Landorus there, and just Icicle Crash. Because you needed to accept that you were losing your Sash that turn, and you needed to hope your King Gambit, even though it's not resisted anymore, you needed to hope that it lived the Bleakwood Storm.
Yeah.
Because you're assuming if the Tornadus is bulky anyways, that your King Gambit's living, maybe you can fish for a drop as well. You're only firing sucker punches off of that anyways. But if you're able to get an icicle crash and a sucker punch in this Landorus, you potentially get a double knockout, and you have a way back in this game. Ogre Pawn there on Arbin's end does give you a little bit of a way out, but Arbin instead is just going to forfeit, and Brian is going to take a 2-0.
What a 2-0, especially by a newer player. That's something that is what's really crazy to me about VGC right now, Tyson, is that these new kids are really, really good, right? Like I said, I was interacting with Brian before the match, and I'm like, hey, dude, what's your accomplishments? No, 6'3", 5'4" at regionals. I just started playing in August. And he just beat somebody that's been playing for years and it's been very, very well known in the community, very respected, high-level player as well, right? Seen top 4 at Charlotte. And he just beat him convincingly 2-0. And let's talk about the leads. Game 1.
He got him on leads.
Got him on
both games.
Both games. Game 2 adjusted well. Torn lando-i. You have nothing for this. And what I think was really good was the fact that Brian did not lead the Torn lando-i game 1. I think that Brian knew that when in doubt, if like I need to just take this set right away, or if I'm in a game 3 situation, I'm gonna pull this out of the the bat. So it was really good seeing how Brian identified those two Pokemon being a very dynamic duo against Arbin's team. And like we were talking about before, the gouging fire. That's one sole issue is lando-i. To all my gouging fire players out there, we all know we do not want to see lando-i in bracket or any shape or form. And I feel for Arbin because the team is really, really good, just barring that lando-i matchup, which is really just tricky to kind of deal with, especially with Rain Dance and Sentry Storm.
Yeah.
That's literally
guaranteeing the hits. It's like, oh, man.
It's literally the worst the worst matchup for gouging because now it's like I'm accurately hitting spread moves that hits most of your Pokemon for super effective damage.
And it's like we were talking about too, right? Where you have spread moves. Spread moves are insane right now. And
undervalued too.
Oh,
100% undervalued. But now I think we're coming to terms with like Blood Moon and like other Pokemon as well that like, okay, wait, why were we using like sub lando-i, which I think is still really good, but there needs to be a realization that clicking Terror, Normal, Life Orb, Hyperforce, and or clicking Make It Rain, and or clicking Sandstream Storm is kind of broken, you know what I mean? Especially with lando-i. Although it's frail, the positive outputs that lando-i brings to a team is that it could hit super hard, right? Super, super hard, which makes it really, really good. I mean, if you're good at positioning and you can expose lando-i's, you could expose lando-i's positives and kind of diminish its negatives a little bit. Like, you kind of allow lando-i to be kind of a crazy Pokemon into a lot of teams, especially if you're kind of like cracked at the game, I want to say, and you can make like certain calls and, you could sub in front of certain mons and stuff like that. And if you're good at identifying those kind of plays with lando-i, it makes the Pokemon way better than what it is. So it's good to see that player, I don't want to say that's not as experienced as Arbin, but somebody who's newer to the game, show how well they could pilot it.
Absolutely, as well. And I think I want to poke the brain of Brian a little bit more and get a winner's interview going as well and talk to Brian. Do you want to take that, or do you want me to?
Oh, no, you got it.
Okay, cool. All right, we'll be right here. I mean, Brian's right here about to join us on the mic. Brian, if you want to sit down and do a winner's interview if you're comfortable. Not to put you on the spot or anything.
Thank you, bro. Thank you.
Yeah, you just put them on. You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Cool. So, first of all, congratulations on your round 2 win. How do you feel?
I feel pretty good. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So, you were saying, well, you were talking to Lorcy before. I was sitting at the couch, but you're new to the game, right? Or when did you start playing VGC?
So, I've been playing VGC, not like officially competitive. Like, I've been going since August when I started at Pittsburgh. But I've been playing since, like, the college days. So, at this point, that's been a while.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you must feel very confident coming off of win at Arbin, right? They just top forward Charlotte. You're maybe thinking, oh, this is a scary opponent, but winning 2-0 is super, super convincing. And we were just talking about it here. Your leads were very, very well positioned, especially that game 2, Tornadus, lando-i. When you saw that, how did you feel?
I felt really good once I saw that, especially knowing that actually at regionals I fought Ashton Cox, and he had a Terra Dark King Gambit.
Oh, wow.
And I had my Landorus wasn't even at full health, and he was able to sucker punch it, and I lived on 1 and was able to win that game basically from that. So I felt pretty good seeing that it was Terra Dragon. I knew I had a good matchup with the King Gambit, and I wasn't even scared of like boosting it obviously, because I knew with the Terra Dragon, it would still be taking a lot with Mr. Entei.
Yeah, and that's really cool. I think your team does a great job as well. I wanted to mention, I think 5 of your Pokemon have spread moves. Breaking Swipe, Sandsear Storm, Bleak Wind, Make It Rain. What else am I missing?
You have the 2 storms. I think is there 4?
Breaking Swipe, Make It Rain. But even 4 is a lot of spread moves, right?
A lot.
We see a lot of people, like even in game 1, or excuse me, round 1, where we saw Jacob, they had Rain Boost at Surging Strikes. A lot of people are dumping damage, and I think that's a lot of the problems with the Gouging Fire teams is they're dumping all these resources into something like the Ogre Pond, for example, and they're Ivy Cudgeling, but in like the mirror, right, you're just dumping into one slot. But your team has so many options in those 4 spread moves where you don't care about Ogre Pond. You're able to just fire up spread moves. How's that felt so far on the team?
It feels really good. Actually, this is my first time running Rain Dance, and I feel like that's a big improvement because I was kind of like hacking my way through. Like yesterday, I placed 4th.
Good players don't miss their moves.
But yeah, running Rain Dance a lot smarter. Like having Icy Wind, I had Icy Wind before it, and you don't really need it anyway. I'm clicking Bleak Wind 95% of the time, so it just kind of made sense. I feel like it puts the team together because now you have 4 spread moves that don't miss. So yeah,
absolutely. But thank you for the interview. Thanks for sitting down for just a little bit. Congratulations on your round 2 win. Very, very convincing win.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here, man. And good luck in your next rounds as well. So
thank you, and thank you guys for hosting. This is always so much fun coming out.
Yeah, shout outs to BrookLAN for sure.
Absolutely, BrookLAN is awesome. Love coming here.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. And thank you, stream, for watching. I think we are going to cut to a quick break here before our round 3 as well. I will be hopping off the mic. Luckily, Lorcy's going to be on with Courtney for round 3. But thank you. Stay tuned for more BrookLAN MSS action, and we will be right back.